we will look at how to make charts based on pivot tables and how to use filters to control the pivots from charts. So we have seen the filters, how the filters work. Let's say we did the same activity just now from choosing the report date from the filter, but this time what we will do, we will see how it can be controlled from the chart itself. So how a chart is linked with a pivot, we will do it, we will check it right away, and then we will proceed towards doing some calculations, some advanced calculations that we will be doing for pivots. So let's move on to our Excel sheet. So this is, let's say, one pivot. If we want, we can apply details to this pivot as well. So what we can do, we can just remove this data, remove this cross tab. Let's see something different. So this is your pivot. Now from this particular pivot, I am looking for let's say department wise project hours. So this is also possible, like how much time each department has contributed. So if I just take the department, so these are my departments, and if I simply go here and take the working hours, so I can see that this is my department wise breakup. So I want to put this top working hours, the department with top working hours at the top. So what I can do, I can simply click on any one of these data points and I can go to data and say Z2A. So the moment I say Z2A, the software comes at the top because it has got maximum working hours. Now based on this data, we can do certain calculations and we can make charts as well. So many things are possible with this particular data. So first thing first, let's talk about how to make a chart out of this particular data. So let's see. For making chart, we have already seen that what is the basis of making chart, what kind of data uses what kind of different kinds of charts. So what we will do, we can simply click on this particular pivot, and the moment I go to pivot, analyze, there is an option which says pivot chart. So automatically Excel shows me one chart and I am okay with that particular chart. Even if I wish, I can take a 3D chart as well, and I say okay. So what happens, instantly I can see a new chart has come. Now here something we have to notice, this particular chart that we have brought in has got some controls in it. So these are the generic parts, like since we have only one data series, there is no point keeping the total. We can put the data labels. So data labels are here, we can just right click and say add data labels, or you can say add data callouts. So add data callouts or labels are two different things. So simply you can put it like this also. Now as I said, this particular pivot table can be controlled from the chart as well, and the vice versa. If I change something in the pivot table, it changes the chart as well. So look at this. Let's take an example that I don't want to put housekeeping and maintenance in this calculation. So I can just click on that option which says filter, and I say uncheck these two, housekeeping and maintenance, and the moment I say okay, so you can see their chart is also getting affected. Vice versa, let's say I don't want to include software here, but all the other departments should be there. So what I can do, software, I can just uncheck and then say okay. So you can see vice versa, that the pivot is also changing. So pivot and the chart are complementing each other, we can say. If you change the chart, the pivot changes. If you change the pivot, the chart changes. Okay. So let's understand some of these filters and controls from pivot chart. Now this particular chart that we have prepared, we can put it in this different designs, different formats. So we have these designs, available. So like this, instantly we can change the design, and then we have something called quick layout also. So depending on your requirement, you can actually change your layout like this. So this is something different. This is something like this particular option is suitable for making any dashboard or something like this. So you can see that gives me a very good nice way of putting data into a chart. So it's a big chart like this. So if you increase, so you can see now it's a big representation of data, and the numbers are also coming at the bottom, so you can easily figure it out. So this is one way of making a chart from a pivot. So as we saw that we can control both of them directly. Now let's do one thing. Let's try some calculations. So this is the chart. We can keep it aside, or we can let's say we are just removing this particular chart. We will focus on calculations also. So chart is fine. We know how to bring the chart and putting the filters to control this particular pivot chart also. So now we are interested more into the calculation part. So let me suggest some calculation. Let's say I have these working hours in place. Now I wanted to check these working hours, how many days they are contributing to. So I don't want data in terms of working hours, want instead number of days. So for doing that, like ideally we could have just gone to employee project and then divide all these working hours by 7 and then get the data and then include that into the pivot table. Alternatively, what we can do, we can always insert a field in this particular pivot. So what we can do, if you go to analyze, so this is a contextual form. So right now I have clicked on the pivot, this pivot table tools comes. If you click outside, that particular tool goes. So this is a contextual tab. If you go to analyze and if you go to field items and sets, if you click there, you will find something called calculated field. Now let's understand how this calculated field works. So here what you see is the total, that is in number of hours. Now I simply want to check the days. Suppose I'm just saying like this, days, fine, or let's say proj. So try to avoid some common names. So let's say I'm saying project days. So now for me project days is nothing but your project hours divided by 7. The moment you say project hours divided by 7, I can get this particular, you say OK, and you see that actually this particular project hours is equivalent to 566 days. This 456 hours of delivery means actually 65 working days. So the hours have now been converted to days. It is also possible to change these headings. So if you just double click here, you can see it says project days, proj days. So I can simply write like this, total underscore project days. Or even better, I can say here project underscore days. If I say OK, so you can see that the heading has been changed. Similarly, here also you can change it, like instead of hours, work hours, you can say work underscore hours, just to change, just to give a different name. Just a small change will work here. So now what is happening, you have inserted a calculated field within this particular pivot. Okay, so this was how to insert a calculation within a pivot. There are multiple other things that we can do with the pivot. So at times, let's say what happens is that you had created a pivot and you add some more column or add some more like records then what you have to do every time, you have to come back and then make the pivot. No, you can go to the pivot, click on pivot, and the moment you go to analyze, there's an option which says change source data. You can click there and you can reselect your data so that it can be captured with the pivot. Another very important thing, let me explain. In this particular project, whatever your data is, understand that there is no direct link with this project and the pivot. So which means that at this particular point of time, if I remove this employee project also, still my pivot will be visible. So how is this project related to the pivot? So project is related to pivot using this particular option called refresh. Now here what you can do, you have an option which says refresh all and refresh. Refresh all, actually, suppose if you have multiple pivots, you can say refresh all and all the pivots will be refreshed. However, there is one thing we have to understand, that this particular refresh is related to a pivot, and only when you say refresh, it takes up data from the raw data part and then updates the pivot. So there is no direct link that if you change something in employee project or this particular raw data, it will automatically change the pivot. So nothing as such. So the next option that we are going to explore is the concept of grouping data. So let's do one thing. We can just go to this particular data. We can create another pivot to understand this effect. Select the data, say Alt D, say Alt DP, say finish. Bring up the classic pivot. See, new underscore pivot. So new pivot we have brought. Now let's say this time the calculation is a bit complex one. So we wanted to check how is my hiring date looking like. So how many people were hired in a particular day or in a particular month or in a particular year, something like this. So we want to do some calculations based on hiring date. So what I can do, I can simply bring the hiring date. Hiring date comes in. So we have all the hiring dates, and if I simply bring in the employee details, so employees who are working in this particular projects right now have their hiring dates in this particular date, as a hiring date as this particular date, 31st January, something like this. Now what we can do here, let's say we are not happy with this segregation of all the dates. So if you are presenting it to the management, they are not interested in who was hired in 12th of February or 17th of March. They would rather like to see the group. So what we can do, we can simply right click and there's an option which says group. The moment you click on group, it automatically takes up, let's say since the data is on months, it automatically takes up the data like this. So automatically groups data in the form of month. So this is one way of portraying the data. Now let's take an example that I am not comfortable seeing this month because I don't know which year this belongs to, January, whether it is from 2010 or 2011 or 12 or 14, whatever it is. So what we can do, we can again go to this particular option and then we can again go to group, and then months is already selected, we select years and we say OK. So now it gives me a proper report. So I can see year-wise details. Now I'm not still happy. I have the years here, but I wanted to check like how many actually in total. I have to calculate it. I have to calculate like this. So by selecting it, I just wanted to check like how many of them were like hired in 2010. So what I can do, I can simply click on one of the year, and there's an option which says subtotal years. So simply I can see the subtotal over here. So we have introduced the concept of like filters, and these are actually advanced application of filters. So we see how do we work with advanced level of filters.